All right, so we're going to be talking about building for the multi-chain future here. A lot of these people probably do not need introduction at this particular event, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce. So right here, I have Stani Kulechov. Is that how you say that? Yeah. Okay. I don't think I said that right, to be fair. I just know you as Stani, so Stani.eth. He's the founder and CEO of AAVE. Then we have Pavel. I'm probably also going to mispronounce this, even though you told me. Sinelnikov? Yeah! Okay. Yeah, it works. Thank you. He's tech integrations lead at Metis. And then we have Seena Foroutan. Yes, Director of Enterprise at Chainlink. My last name is also hard, so if y'all had to say it, you'd mess it up too. Okay, we're gonna get started. So first of all, I'm interested in how you all got into the space, and I ask that because I wanna know like what the evolution was like towards maybe you first entering on one chain, and then seeing how the world has spread out, how the crypto space has spread out into this multi-chain world. So Stani, I'll start with you.
Well, my kind of like beginning was, I usually say that I was like born and raised in Ethereum because that was pretty much the only thing that had EVM and amazing ecosystem of developers, and I've always been a technologist in my teen years, building applications and mainly in fintech, and for some reason I choose to go law instead of like computer science. Mainly because there's like a lot of regulation in fintech, and you know that stuff scared me quite a lot, and I wanted to learn more. And during my kind of like last years of studies, I started to think of like how we could implement technology into making like legal agreements more efficient and getting rid of lawyers before becoming myself one. And I found blockchain and Ethereum and the concept of like EVM and smart contracts attracted in a way that you could build any kind of an application and deploy it into this network, and it's supposed to live there forever. And that was just like very fascinating. And it was very early, probably like 2016. Then I got more and more excited, and when my hype was the peak, the DAO hack happened, and I was like, what's going on here? And I lost a bit of interest for a short period of time because I couldn't understand fully the ecosystem. I mean, many people who join into Web3, they have this learning curve, and it can be like from a few months to a year or a year and a half, and some of the stuff you figure out in a couple of years even. And that happened to me, and a lot of folks who are coming now into the space, they're very overwhelmed of the information, what to understand, and I think everyone had that, whatever, regardless of your background. Even I'm still realizing things. What it just showcases like how much information there is. So so for me, that went down, and during 2016 late, Ether Delta came. That was like the first decentralized exchange, and there was like 2 users or 3. No one was actually using it, but it was a very interesting technology because it was kind of like first DEX out there. And I was thinking, well, if there's DEXs, you have this like liquidity. You could actually use this liquidity and use these assets as a collateral in a smart contract and borrow other liquidity, borrow Ethereum. Some of these concepts were very difficult to explain even because when I introduced my idea in Reddit in 2017 early, put a collateral into a smart contract, borrow another one. I got quite critiqued about that because everyone is saying that you can just sell your assets, and like finance and what happens in finance in general and financial applications was a new concept in the ecosystem, and it was very small. So then first kind of like a POC that we started to build was ETHLend, short for Ethereum lending, and we basically just started to iterate more the technology, and the community started to grow, and essentially more and more cool people joined the team. So we were very small, and we we got a lot of young, excited engineers joining and just wanted to change the world and decentralize everything. And essentially, we went all the way to deploying AAVE V3 protocol, which is amazing technology on multiple networks and soon on Metis too. So coming there so slowly. But I came to Ethereum, so that's the point. And
Pavel, I'll pass it on to you. We're definitely going to talk some about V3, so yeah, stay tuned for that. But go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Is this thing on? Perfect, okay.
Just hold it a bit closer.
A bit closer, got it, okay. All right, well, how I started with Ethereum. Ooh, my life story.
Well, was it Ethereum that you started with, or did you
yes,
Bitcoin
it was
first? Or
Ethereum.
Dogecoin, maybe? Some people got in with Dogecoin.
So it was an interesting story and discussion. So my mom got me into it, and that's like something that, she was a visionary, she still is a visionary. She saw the way that things were progressing with crypto, and that made her move to Toronto, and she started her own business called Crypto Chicks. And she was very enthusiastic about expanding the growth and the knowledge and the complexities of the ecosystem, making it more friendly for people to come on board, and for especially women in technology and just people looking to get educated within the crypto space. So she made things more friendly for people, more approachable for crypto, for less tech-savvy people. And I got onboarded as one of the educational managers for a lot of it. I created a lot of content, and that brought me within the ecosystem. I didn't know what Ethereum was, what anything was with it, but I just took a straight deep dive and learned everything there is to know, because if I know every single tiny detail, I can help explain it. And so that is what got me into it. And then it was a lot of these things, you know, again, she needed someone for a programs manager for people to, we led startups as well. And so there was a startup incubation program, which Crypto Chicks founded again. And we had 10 startups initially. 2 of them were more or less successful in terms of they got through the whole program, and they're continuing on in their journey as well. In terms of how I got started at Metis as well, that again, we need someone for the ambassador program. So I'm just a very helpful person, and so, but I'm also very passionate in terms of the technology, in terms of Ethereum itself, in terms of crypto. I think that it's a revolutionary technology which expands the global reach, and it's just a new way of thinking when you can interact with anyone across the world and send millions of dollars, tens of dollars, whatever, it doesn't matter to anyone. And I had my experiences again with banks and whatnot about sending money, but it's more than just sending money. It's more than just DeFi. It's more than just NFTs and gaming and whatnot. It's the way that it all interacts, that people are building and constantly approaching the technology in a way where you can expand and you can essentially grow from the experiences of others. So every single thing that is done builds off of each other. And I think that composability and that decentralization and that approachability leads more people into this space. And that's what got me into it, that approachability, that way that I can contribute my way of knowing about a thing really well and then explaining it in a way that people can understand. And I can contribute a small part in a large ecosystem. And I think that is where the true value and what got me into it.
Yeah, totally. And then Seena, for you, how did you get in?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I started from, at Coinbase, we said banking the unbanked and creating a more open financial system that's more transparent and fair, and that's really what got us into it. Chainlink Labs specifically, we meet our users exactly where they are, right? So for us, it's always been what network is moving and growing, and so that clearly started with Ethereum, but we are expanding cross-chain as well, right? Our team is working really hard on a cross-chain interoperability solution, and so this will allow us to safely move across and actually build a decentralized financial economy that, as of right now, is, you know, it's a little bit fragmented, but over time, it's exciting what's happening because that's going to change quite a bit.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that. So we talk a lot about multi-chain and also cross-chain, which I think have two different definitions, but those are probably pretty, the definitions probably overlap quite a bit. And there's discussion about, okay, is the future multi-chain or is it cross-chain? Is it a mix of both? I know Vitalik doesn't think super highly about cross-chain and the vulnerabilities that can happen in those bridging mechanisms. So I guess I'd like everybody to sort of talk about how they feel about that multi-chain versus cross-chain conversation. Stani, go ahead.
I think like the whole multi-chain ecosystem is interesting because it allows different communities to get exposed to new user bases. So for example, just to give an example is that the AAVE community has always been quite inclusive in the sense that how we approach different networks, or when it comes to asset listings, like the protocol itself, it's very simple. You supply assets there and you see them grow, right? But in the background, there is a lot of like risk mechanisms and parameters, and they're very conservative. If you take overall the space, but there's loads of assets that you can actually supply. And the idea there behind is that we realized very early in the AAVE community that there is power in the communities. And what that means is that when you give utility to one particular asset and you pretty much open utility for a community, and for AAVE, when it comes to asset listings or expanding to another network, essentially you're empowering users. And our mission from the beginning has always been empowerment. I mean, we love to build very amazing things and innovate, but we do that to inspire other builders to build more things and make impact. And for example, whenever we deploy as a community a new network, in a new network, our protocol, that basically taps into new user base. And I think most of the users, today they will not come into Ethereum right away because of the fact that it's very congested, which is good. That means that there's demand. Blockchain is needed. Block space is in demand. So they will come from other networks, and that's good. And then what you can do as a community member is that you can choose a community which you prefer the most, interact with, and it creates new opportunities. And that's how I think we will see more people onboarding. So I just don't think that we'll have one particular kind of like a network where everything settles. I think we'll have just multiple implementations. And part of the idea of decentralization is that we don't rely on one particular thing. So I think it's going to be a very big, complex spider web of communities, and everyone feels somewhere their own kind of like a identity.
So the users that are on, let's say they start on Avalanche and then you open up to, well, let's say they start on Ethereum and then you open up to Avalanche or something. Those are not the same users. You're seeing that those are brand new from Avalanche into the Ethereum network. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Well, for example, I'm an Ethereum user and an Avalanche user and Metis user. So like, I think people just kind of like, they explore a bit different networks depending on what reasons they have. But I think it's the applications that then kind of like bring those users and different communities. So it really depends on what kind of innovation we'll see and applications in these ecosystems. And like when, I guess like Ethereum problem is the transaction cost, but there's new networks, layer 2s and everything, so that's not an issue. So you will have more like loyalty in those ecosystems and upside to build more things.
Right, yeah. I mean, I can just say I launched a project on Polygon. This is not a pitch by any means. They are not for sale. But I launched it, and because the prices are so cheap, it makes me more apt to jump into Ethereum. I mean, I am already on Ethereum too, but it's just like, it gives you that confidence to then actually spend amounts of money, right? On if you're doing NFTs or DeFi. And so I cannot speak highly enough about the fact that there are multiple chains that you can do some low-cost things on that then make you want to push the boundaries even further. Pavel, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk a little bit about, Metis is sort of building this ecosystem of like no-code dApp building and things like that. And so how do you sort of think about making things super easy for builders and also users to then come into these ecosystems?
Thank you for the question. I think that making things simple, making things easy to understand, making things approachable is what got me into the ecosystem. And so I think that a lot of the technical details, I think a lot of the implementation details, I think everything that's done so far has led up to the infrastructure to build that. What I find that a lot of the technical jargon and everything that's involved within the ecosystem, it's not just the infrastructure. Nobody cares that you're running on HTTP or TCP/IP or whatnot, not the protocols itself. It's the applications that are building on top of it, and the applications that people know of it. And having the ability to do no-code solutions, having the ability to have ease of use, having the ability to spin up entire applications in one click of a button, and then you don't know what specifics that goes on behind the scenes. You know that it just works and it spins and it does what it needs to do. And that's what got people into NFTs, is that it's so approachable. You have artwork, you have things that people can tangibly understand, you have artwork that you can sell on different applications and different platforms. These types of applications that create something tangible, a tangible value for people that are coming outside of the blockchain ecosystem to come back into it and just see how things can relate within this ecosystem. So I think that having a way to make it approachable, having a way to make it as easy as possible to come in, and you don't need to learn everything, how a transaction works. You don't need to learn, the gas limits, the gas price, or any of the technical details related to it. You just need to know that I have an idea for an application, I have an idea, and I want to build something. And I need, these people to do it, and off you go. You don't need to know more than just the essentials in terms of expansion. And so that's why we're embodying the scalability, security, and usability as our motto for Metis as well.
Yeah, so I agree with you, right? Because I'm just talking about like, how do we make it as simple as possible? These things are still like very complicated and confusing, also scary to push the button, right? I don't want to lose my crypto. But I guess where I would push back is sometimes, we try to abstract away the technology, and I think that's what the traditional systems have done in a lot of ways, which meant that we didn't know how they worked. So Facebook is like a prime example, right? Abstract away all of that. We don't know we are the product, and now we're in this mess that we are in, where Facebook is taking all of our data and Google is taking all of our data and using that when we don't want to. So I guess, yeah, that's not to say I disagree, but all three of you can sort of talk about this, because I think it is pretty integral to the crypto space and what we're trying to do. Pavel, go ahead.
Yeah. I like the idea where you said Facebook, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I agree as well. I think that there's definite ways that our data, for example, is being sold in ways that we don't know about. The cookies, just the GDPR, and now everywhere you're like, do you want your cookies to be shared? And then there's yes, no, I don't know. But in this case, I think that having ways, I think that understanding the way that Facebook has done it, understanding the way that that Amazon, that Google, that all these other big tech companies are using your data, gives a sense of perspective on the people know what to look out for when doing this. And so we know that users care about their data, users care about that transparency. And blockchain, I believe if you're going onto blockchain, there's some privacy protocols that are there, and I think privacy protocols are also essential to have. There are some things that you don't want everyone to see. Maybe the vendors that you're interacting with, or there's certain things within an organization that you might want to keep secret away from the business world. But I think that if you're using blockchain, you're doing it for three reasons. You're doing it for the transparency, first of all. You're doing it for the verifiability, and then you're doing it for the immutability as well. So I think that all blockchain applications that are being built leverage those three core ideals and those three core principles within the ecosystem. And I think that is what makes blockchain easily and approachable to go from a centralized database or something that you don't know what exactly is going on behind the scenes to something that's open, verifiable, and immutable.
Yeah. Seena, do you want to comment on that? And just how Chainlink like fits into that?
Yeah, I love how you're talking about building applications, because building applications right now, it's not easy, right? It requires us to know multiple languages and kind of create that interoperability on our own, which it's not feasible, right? The way web developers can build great high quality web applications today, we don't have that same benefit right now in Web3. And so that's exactly what we're trying to solve with CCIP, is allowing people to stitch smart contract code together, utilizing the network for whatever its benefit is. Every single one of these networks has a different balance between security, throughput, transparency, everything, right? And so we can now create pretty complex workflows and triggers that before it took developers a lot more leg lift to do. And so as we think of some of these expansions in the space, when we think about applications being built on certain networks, reducing the time, reducing the amount of resources we dedicate, it's going to be monumental to the space, and it'll make it a lot more. It'll open up that unbanked, banking the unbanked methodology that we're all trying to do.
Does everybody here know what CCIP is? Okay, there are head nods, so maybe, yeah, okay. I just want to make sure. You should tell people what that is, just in case.
She's great. Chainlink is building a cross-chain bridging solution. It's called Cross-Chain Interoperability Protocol, or also known as CCIP, which allow folks to utilize multiple different networks and stitching together what we call a cross-chain hybrid smart contract. So if we want to start with staking on Ethereum, we want to use a ZKP to do some KYC, we want to cross-pollinate to a different ecosystem that's based off of a different language, that can all be done now in a much quicker time. Once it's fully launched, and our friends here at AAVE here have been helping us quite diligently with that.
Nice, okay. I want to stay on you, Seena. In terms of traditional institutions coming into the blockchain space, I assume that this sort of cross-chain, multi-chain world is a bit intimidating to them, right? Maybe they've heard about Ethereum or one of the chains, but then they're not quite clear that everything's sort of moving across chains. And so with the AccuWeather, I think AccuWeather had come to Chainlink and was, discussing farm insurance, crop insurance. And so talk to us about how they came to you, what they knew, what sort of the hurdles that they saw were.
Yeah, thank you. So Chainlink, we don't just do price data. We do absolutely every data set that people can find value on chain. A big focus, sorry about my voice, it's been a long week. First thing we did was weather data to power a lot of different things. Most recently, actually, we launched an announcement with Lemonade on Tuesday that actually powers flood insurance in Nigeria, and we're utilizing multiple different data sets from AccuWeather to multiple other data sets, and then we have a whole consortium of reinsurers. Now, you bring up a good point, do these enterprises actually know anything about cross-chain? The reality is they actually do, because it's the only way that some of these things in their mind could actually work. Consortiums and enterprises are going to live off their own foundations, right? And so if they want a workflow or a trigger that combines all those things, they understand there's going to have to be some sort of transfer of communication, assets, really whatever. And at the beginning, it was, bridging was an unknown concept, and so the conversation really stopped there. But fast forward to today, and some of these innovative leaders are actually thinking about how they can incorporate multiple different chains to fit a certain workflow. To your point, attest to GDPR compliance, staying in line with PII, and making it comfortable for people to comfortably KYC in certain places. This will all be done at the end of the day if we're utilizing multiple networks within one smart contract workflow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess that's true about institutions. They're very used to consortiums and sort of hopping from one, chain is the wrong word, but one group to the next. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay, one of the things I wanted to talk about is sort of the parameters for how you think about going from one chain to the next. So I'm going to pass this to you, Stani. Which ones do you integrate or deploy onto? And are there, are there chains that you would not deploy on right now, and why?
This is a funny question because
Sorry. Hopefully it's nobody here.
Let me scan the audience quickly. Exactly. So essentially, like for whatever I say, it doesn't matter because essentially it's the AAVE community decides where we could deploy. But I would say that essentially all technology is it's at certain stage. So when there was only Ethereum, like, and all this like other like layer ones and proof of stake networks as well, like Polygon, for example, and now layer 2 is Metis and everything. All this cool stuff is like evolving. So as everything matures, there's like more and more kind of like a probability that the AAVE community gets excited about this new stuff. And every community has its own thing. Like, for example, I really love this no code aspect because it speeds up the innovation and the rate of innovation. And as we know in decentralized ecosystem where the code is public and everything is up for to take and modify and redeploy, there isn't like competitive mode. So it's all innovation. So I think like it's all about like as things mature, like a community gets more and more traction and everyone gets more excited, which is a good thing. But also kind of like we are as a community, we're very, very inclusive. So and we love to kind of like lead and show the way that we as a community deploy into new networks very, very easily. And especially with the AAVE V3, what is very cool is that there's so-called like supply cap, depth cap, so it's very like risk-averse protocol. So you can deploy it very relatively fast, list assets very, very quickly in isolation mode. So it's very scalable in that sense, and you can progressively scale the exposure of the protocol. So that can happen quite quickly. And that was the kind of like idea of the V3, that we increase the capital efficiency, but we also like have a lot of risk-averse mindset when we, especially in this world where we have like a lot of innovation coming and a lot of networks. But yeah, it's interesting how decentralized governance works. Like people come together and something is ripe, it passes, and and things progress.
How long do those governance votes take usually? Sorry, I don't know this, but yeah, what's that process like?
It's a good question because sometimes it's it depends. You see a proposal coming into the AAVE ecosystem, and maybe it sits there for a week or 2, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. I don't know. I've seen proposals that are like there for months before they move. So it's all about like the initiator. The first step is like the discussion in the. Do you actually want to explain the process more? He's the expert of the governance.
All right.
He's a legend, by the way.
Hey, I'm Marcelo from AAVE.
Phoning in a friend. Love
so
it.
the governance of AAVE, it's governance.aave.com. It's open to everyone. You are all welcome to participate directly. Basically, the governance process is very standardized. We took a lot of inspiration from also the other actors of the ecosystem, such as MetisDAO and the other guys. But we build also our own thing. And basically, the way it works is that anybody in the world can have an ID, create a thread in the governance forum, have it there, meet the community and discuss the ID, sometimes get feedback, sometimes change the proposal. Then we have an integration with Snapshot that allow anybody that has some AAVE on every chain, because and for free, without paying transaction fee to do that, to vote transparently on this thing. And then the last step, when the snapshot is validated, is that we do a AIP, AAVE improvement proposal, that is a direct vote on chain. And because we built a module that is completely open source and open to everyone to integrate in their own protocol, that vote that happened on the Ethereum mainnet can basically be propagated, for example, on Metis, directly without trust assumption and in a permissionless way.
Thank you. Yes. Nice. Perfect. Nice calling in a friend. Love that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to users. So in this sort of cross-chain, multi-chain world where people are following incentives, yield farming incentives, and just jumping from one chain to the next. I guess, how do you keep your users loyal to you? And so, Stani, I'm just going to pass it right over to you as well, but we'll do all of you.
Well, one thing we try kind of like keep the loyalty is with throwing parties. So we have this drama party.
Yes,
I've seen some of them. There's actually a very good way to retain users.
It's just about the party. Okay. Are you going to expand on that, or that's it?
Well, there's other things too. I think it's kind of the community involvement and how much you get the community to involve in your process. So if there's like just the same people always creating proposals and voting, and it's not that interesting. But if everyone can actually decide and be able to participate, but also like that's just the governance side. But other side is the community, such as these events. If everyone can come here, talk about ideas, share ideas, and be able to contribute, because community without contribution is very unscalable. And I think that's a very important part, how to keep people loyal in some way. But also innovation, like increasing the rate of innovation and keeping and building constantly. I mean, we ship the version 3 of the AAVE protocol, and we are already shipping some new stuff. Well, building, not shipping yet, but progressing on our roadmap. So I think like keeping the community excited is always one way to go.
Pavel, I'm going to throw that same question over to you.
Awesome. How to keep users loyal. I work as a part of business development at Metis as well. So I'm in a lot of the business development meetings. I explain the tech in a way that people can understand. A lot of what goes into the business development meetings is understanding what the needs of every protocol is. Every protocol has different needs that they have. Some might need money. Most need money. Some might need more technical resources or help. Some might need marketing. Some might need partnerships. I found that the easiest way to get a project to be loyal is to partner, to have partnerships occur within an ecosystem, to be collaborative and to work well with others. Because a single protocol cannot do everything on its own. And if it's just Ethereum, the chain, with no applications built on it, then that would also not be used. But it's the protocols, it's the environment, it's the ecosystem, it's that collaborative environment that allow for projects to come in and contribute to the value. And having that as a way to keep people accountable as well. It's like a buddy system where it's like, oh, we're partners, hey, how's it going? And so having that way to communicate needs, to understand one another, that you're progressing not just because you want to make more money, but you're progressing because you believe in the project, you believe in what you're doing, you believe that it will help expand not just the ecosystem, not just the people, but the collaboration, the community, the environment. And I think that is what brings loyalty, is that ability to collaborate and cooperate. And I've been to ETH Denver, for example, and ETH Denver was just that. It was just one house where it's like, everyone's in there and everything's very close by, a close-knit community, and everyone knows each other. And a lot of the events, I'm very new to crypto events, but even being at LizCon, I still meet people from ETH Denver, and I find that it's a very close community, and that's what Stani was talking about. It's the parties, it's the collaboration, it's the people that you see on a day-to-day basis, and that make you want to contribute and collaborate. It's the emotional, not just the money or the fame or what it is.
So when is going to happen the Metis Fest?
Ooh, that's good. I'm unfortunately very bad at organizing in terms of events and things, but I could use some help with with that. I heard AAVE is very, very good, and so you should all go to it. And
If this is not clear that we are living the dream, we basically print money and it's all about the parties. So living the dream here. Yes. Seena, I want to pass the same question over to you, and because look, Chainlink has the Link Army, right? You have a very good community, which sometimes is a bit aggressive, to be fair, but it's fine. I get it. It's crypto, but I would like to know how you guys try to cultivate that community and keep people loyal to Chainlink, especially since it's not like a user-facing product.
Yeah, our answer is a little bit more straightforward than these two folks to my left. It's really just being secure and reliable, right? Chainlink, we've never had any sort of downtime. We expand our data sets based on what the users are looking for. That's our only job. That's what people depend on us for. We went to AAVE and we said, hey, we're here, here's our tickets. They said, you guys power our back end, get in here. And that really hit home, because yes, that is what we do every day. Our team works very diligently, very hard to keep the level of uptime that we do. It's also hard to expand the way we are, but that's why Chainlink, we're growing so fast, and we're trying to fill every person that we can in there, so we can actually fulfill the ecosystem the way it currently needs to. All these chains, all these different data sets, it's a lot of work on our end, but for us, it's really simple. It's just staying up.
And there's always a Chainlink happy hour at every conference, so it is also about the parties still.
We have monthly happy hours in New York. If anyone's at Link Marine, we'll see you there.
Okay, switching gears. I think we only have a few minutes, to be fair. Not that, we're going to stick around as well, so you guys can talk to these folks also. I want to talk about your grants program. I think all of you all have a grants program, and so I'm wondering what you're seeing being pitched and built in those. Is there like a real multi-chain, cross-chain feel with some of these grants that you're giving out? Stani, I'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, most of the grants, like the AAVE company itself, the Genesis builders, we used to have a grants program ourselves, and we probably gave a grant a week, which was very good for a team of we were 15 people. And now one of the initiatives we had for, I think, over a year and a half is the AAVE GrantsDAO. And AAVE GrantsDAO is its own kind of like a spin-off DAO or sub-DAO, whatever, from the AAVE DAO, which requests quarterly a proposal of pretty much like supporting the ecosystem, and grants is very much part of that. So with the GrantsDAO, we see different kinds of applications. They range quite a lot. So most of them are building some sort of an application on top of the AAVE protocol. It might be also integration and that's kind of like very basic stuff. I'm also excited about just different kinds of initiatives that the GrantsDAO funds. For example, there is a project called She-Fi that educates more women into the space. There's like a lot of cool initiatives. Also, the Crypto Chicks, where actually, I remember one of the first kind of like hackathons that AAVE, when we were called Eatland, participated. So there's like a lot of cool things we fund from there as a community, and I think like grants is something that we could scale a bit more, because the whole open source ecosystem is partly based on them. But yeah, I see mostly tech, but now increasingly other interesting initiatives, events. I think this is even the first time when GrantsDAO is even funding AAVE in Amsterdam. So I mean, it's evolving.
Sure. Okay, Pavel, same question to you. Are you seeing these applications built on your platform, like multi-chain and cross-chain stuff coming out of that?
To clarify, we don't actually have a grants program.
That's my bad.
No, I'm kidding. No, this actually ties into the loyalty question that you have. So right above me, we have the builder mining program. So what's something that Metis does specifically, and different from every other chain that's out there, is that 30% of the transaction fees and revenue goes back into the people who built the smart contracts. So this means that any transactions that any users have ever used to interact with the smart contract that was built, that deployed by you, by someone else, 30% of that goes back to the actual builder. So this allows for, first, incentivizing people to build projects that have large amounts of transactions. And second, it makes projects loyal. It has that incentive to create consistent value, to see that, well, it's not just a $10,000 grants and build whatever and then see if it generates value. No, this incentivizes value generation from the start, and it's recurring revenue. So it's not just a one-time $10,000 thing. You can be potentially earning whatever amount of money based on your performance. So this has a large play within the ecosystem and environment. It allows for increasing, still maintains that competitive environment, and we see and pride ourselves on sustainability. So we think that this is in the long term more sustainable than just giving out money until it runs out. So this is what we have as our grants program as a replacement for it. Although we do have a $100 million ecosystem fund for projects that need a little bit more of a kickstart, and that's more of less about grants but more about VC funding. But we build projects up with a lot of this. A lot of projects that come to us are very developer focused. So they might need more of a guidance on what might be relevant in the industry, what might be the direction. Some say, well, you need to market yourselves as this. You need to, well, it's some things that might need a bit more assistance that we can help with. And so we provide, I would say, more than just that grants, more than just the builder mining rewards, but a way for projects to understand the ecosystem that they're developing in and where they should continue to progress further. And in addition to which partnerships that they should seek out within the ecosystem or even outside of it as well. So that's I guess a part of the program as well.
Yeah, totally. And then Seena, what's coming out of Chainlink grants?
Yeah, we've had a grants program for a while now. We change it all the time based off of what we see in the space, different use cases, different data sets. Those grants are always really based around that. We actually just announced startup for Chainlink Monday or last week. I think it was Monday. We announced startup for Chainlink. And this is going to be huge for us simply because we're going to help encourage development and incubate and accelerate as many different projects as we can with reliable infrastructure. We'll be closer to the source. We'll be able to understand, hey, what data sets we need to be looking at, and it'll be much more help to do so. So startups for Chainlink just got announced, and we're expanding. We're hoping to make that expand globally across every ecosystem possible. That team is also growing quite drastically, so we can cover that scale. So you'll see a lot more of that coming in the coming weeks for sure.
Okay, and then we're just going to do one last question, and I don't know, maybe it's easy, but what still needs to be built to make this multi-chain future, to realize that vision for the multi-chain future? And I'll just go down the line again, so Stani, you can start.
I think the bridges is one thing where we need a lot of more exercise in terms of different kinds of implementations, and maybe if you can make them somehow less trusty in the sense that, but it's always challenging when you bridge between two different networks. And in terms of the layer 2s, it's a bit more easier. But then also now that the transaction fees are lower, especially in layer 2s, could be cool to see more consumer-oriented applications as well being built. And I mean, one of the things that we at AAVE we've done recently, we built this decentralized social graph, the Lens protocol. So if you're all wondering what all that advertisements there is, so yeah, so it's just an example that Web3 is more than decentralized finance. It's NFTs are empowering the greater economy. Social can be part of Web3 and also commerce and whatever we can imagine. So what could be cool to see is more consumer facing applications in a way where you don't need to hassle too much with your seeds and so forth, and just have low value transactioning, some sort of a wallet where you can access the whole Web3 ecosystem and see that it's more than holding currencies, and there's a lot of things to do.
My question about decentralized social media is like, does social media need to live forever on a blockchain? Especially as we see people get canceled for tweets. And when I look back on my Facebook posts from my early days, I mean, I don't want that to be saved, you know?
No, I agree. The cool thing about the Lens protocol is that we build it very like data agnostic, so you can choose to store it in IPFS, you can store it as tree, however you want to deploy your application and save the content. But at the same time, you can create also modules that where you can remove some content based on some sort of community governance or by the users themselves. So I don't think necessarily everything needs to live forever, and I definitely agree. Like there is content that should be short term, and there should be flexibility. But technically, like it's very agnostic. But I definitely see the issue.
Yeah, for sure. And it sorry, I'm going on a like tangent here, but it also becomes, it's worrisome if these systems become so much more bureaucratic than our systems already are. It's like even calling to get, some news, to unsubscribe from a newsletter can be bureaucratic, And so if we put it on a blockchain that's immutable and lives forever, I worry how hard that's going to be to change sometimes. But anyway, I'm going to get off my digression, sorry. Pavel, same question to you. What do you think needs to be built to realize this multi-chain world that we're all envisioning?
More applications. I think that every single chain has its own unique value proposition. And so you have Solana, you have Avalanche, you have Ethereum, you have Binance Smart Chain, you have Polygon. So you have all of these different unique chains with their unique value propositions. I think that each chain having their own unique propositions allows for more projects to be built specific for the chain that they're on, and to expand applications specific to what is useful for the specific chain. Now, of course, if it's generalizable, EVM compatible and whatnot, that's kind of, you can expand it into many different parts, and so there's definite. It's really hard to see the differences, especially when you go ingrained in terms of like the protocol level stuff. But I would say that having access to more applications, having access to more ideas allows for people to take certain ideas. A lot of projects that built onto Metis originally were forks from other established projects like Compound or Curve or other, you basically have ideas, or Uniswap as well. So you have all of these different projects that are you supply that initial idea, but then you go and it's different, and people try out new and experimental ways to increase the usage of it. It's not just a direct fork. You add maybe a form of leverage trading on Uniswap, and then having that combined together in a way that, it can work differently, and then this chain has its own personality and ability to do things in its own way, and a sense of where you would do your business, where you would do your different expansions. You would pick the chain that's right for you, and then in addition, having that cross-chain ecosystem, having those bridges attached to different ecosystems as well, allows for that more interoperability. And I think that having just more applications in general will drive more adoption and will lead to that multi-chain future.
And then Seena, last but not least.
It's nice being after these two because they say everything and I just have nothing to say. But if I was to say anything, I mean, obviously it's bridging, right? I think it's the key. But what I really like to see and what I am seeing is traditional institutions working on public networks. Actually seeing the value of, not building a permission world and actually just kind of embracing what's out there and making it work. You see it more and more every day. With that comes more consortiums with other folks who have the same type of mindset. And to me, I think that is going to have an absolute huge impact, because now we won't have a fragmentation of liquidity as much. We can actually pool capital and communication and use cases from different areas. That's a shift that I have not seen, right? Like it used to be Fabric and R3 and all these guys, and now it's actually something completely different. And like it's super exciting to see that because it'll be monumental to the space long term. So.
Down with the private blockchains. Down with them. All right, not down in a good way, like down, burn them down. Nobody wants a private blockchain. Destroy them. Thank you. Are you with AAVE?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. Chainlink said down with the private blockchains. Okay. Anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for being such a good audience. It was very quiet. Thank you. I'll let you guys go back to drinking. Yeah, and talk to these guys. They'll be around. Thanks so much.